this meeting started. So Noreen, would you please do the roll call of attendance?
Anthony Vaccaro.
He's muted. Anthony, you're muted.
I'm here.
Jason Strzynski.
Here.
Bonnie Franson.
Present.
Pat Shea.
Here.
Lisa McQuaid.
Here.
And John Allegro is absent and Jeff Manson is absent. We have a quorum.
Excellent. So we can start our meeting. Let's all start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you want to stand or if you want to sit. I don't know. We don't have our flag bearer here, so.
Yes.
I pledge of allegiance
Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
and justice for
for
all.
all. Thank you. All right. So the first item on the agenda is Kupo Mafi. Who do we have in the attendees who are representing the applicant? We have, I think it's John Locke has his hand
Yes.
up.
He should be there, and I did see Kupo.
I see Chris Kupo. If you can raise your hand.
They're both on but muted.
John, you're muted.
Here we go. I think we got it.
I hear you. Is
Good
anyone
evening.
else? Good evening. Is anyone else besides Chris joining us, or it's just Chris and you?
Rosellen Cupo and Vito Maffei. Oh, Chris Cupo is my son. This is his computer.
Oh, okay. So Ellen, you're on? You said? Who? Just to repeat your name for the record.
Rosellen Cupo?
Thank you. And did you say someone from the
Vito
Mafi?
Maffei. He's the other applicant.
Okay. Is he here or is he with you?
Yeah, we're both here. I don't know. Can you see us?
No. I see your name though, but I don't see the other individual's name, Mr. Mafi. Okay, now I see you.
Oh, now, yeah. My son had to do this for us.
No worries. All right, so welcome. We've been reviewing your proposed application. John, do you want to give us an overview of where we are?
Certainly. It's a fairly simple application. 3 existing lots, 3 proposed lots. What we are doing is taking 2 lots that are somewhat smaller and making them larger, and taking 1 large lot and making it smaller. It does work out well in terms of the zoning because part of the area requirements are related to sewer service. Proposed lot 1 will remain on sewer service, and that will be the smaller lot, the one we're shrinking a little bit. Proposed lots 2 and 3, which are on septic and require larger parcels, we are making those parcels larger. All of the easements are existing with the exception of a proposed easement for a water service that will pass through proposed lots 2 and 3 to continue providing service to lot 1.
John, Sean, do you have the map that you can bring up?
I do. I'll do that now.
And since our last meeting, was there anything new submitted?
Yes, I had sent in a map. The only revision to it really was making sure that the easements were clearly labeled as existing and also provided net area calculations, deducting the full area of the easements. It doesn't change anything with respect to, requirement for any variances or anything.
Okay. So I just want to then ask Ashley, was there some information that we were seeking that had to be pursued either with the building department or information that was still necessary to determine frontages?
Yeah, so the the plan right now, it labels the front yard as being off of that West Wind Drive. but the front yard is actually the southern lot line, so it gets access from this private gravel drive there, I believe, or private road rather. That should be the current front yard, and that's going to be that'll be the front yard after the lot line change as well. If it stays as it's labeled now, then it would require a variance because the front yard would change because they're no longer going to be fronting that West Wind Drive. So I did speak to the building inspector about this, and we took a look at it, and he agreed that the front yard should be changed. So basically, you'd label that southern lot line the front yard and change all the others as well. That's for lot 1, I believe. I did also speak to him about the pre-existing nonconformities. So that all looked good with the exception of on lot 2, I believe, there's a pool deck attachment that will require, that didn't appear to have approval, so that's going to require building department approval, but it's nothing as far as the setback pre-existing nonconformities. Those are all okay. So basically, the plan will need to be modified to change the front yard's going to be what's now labeled as a side yard. The rear yard's going to be then directly behind that, and then the 2 side yards as well. The table will have to be updated accordingly, and then it will be treated as a lot line change, so it won't be a subdivision, because that was really the big question, whether it would be a lot line change or a subdivision.
And are you saying with these changes then and the redefining the yards that it won't require an area variance, or it will still require?
It won't require one because they'll all be pre-existing.
Okay.
Because the current rear yard right now is, I don't know if Sean, you could zoom in a little there on that lot 1, but it's, that's going to be the rear yard still. So up there at the top, that's going to be the same. And then the front yard is going to be it should be that southern lot line. So that is basically that was the primary issue. And then
Okay.
the table again will have to be updated. There was also, I think, in the table, one of the references to 61.8, that should really be 51.8 based on the plan. I think that was just a typo. I do have a couple of other comments. I don't know if you want to go to Sean first or.
No, why don't you finish up and then we'll turn it over to Sean.
So it's going to be a type 2 action. We had talked about that because it's a lot line change. It is within 500 feet of a county road, so it had to be referred to the county planning department, which the referral was done on June 30th, I believe. So you'll have to wait to get that response or for 30 days to pass to take any action. There's a detail for the proposed water service easement up at the top, but I'd ask that actually where you show that where it's going to be on the actual plan, if you could just label that as well.
It is
Just
on the
add a
plan.
label. But it's not labeled as an easement on the plan. I think you show water line, but see at the top you have the detail. If you could also mention the easement on
Okay.
the actual plan.
Okay,
Just a couple then minor revisions for the map notes. The general note number 6, if you could just add at the bottom, at the end of that it will be via water service easement. Reference note number 2, it's still missing the current deed for the SBL 328. That deed is Lieber 11405, page 1997. And also the other deeds, if they could just be referenced by Lieber and page number, not the page range. And then reference note 3, just add the date the map was filed, which was February 27th, 1975. And I think that might be it.
Okay, so we can get a list of that to John. Sean, what are your comments?
Mute myself. Let me pull this to the side so we can look at the map. Just, Ashley already talked about the easements, just so that they're in the form acceptable to her for the water service. The plan has to be stamped by a surveyor prior to signature. And then we already talked about type 2 and a public hearing is optional for a lot line change. So that's discretionary up to the board. So that's all I have. The topo was added from the last time. I think everybody remembers, just that, you know, for some reason they didn't show up on the last plan, but that's been
Right.
addressed. So.
All right, board members, do you have any comments with regard to this application and any of the changes that have been made into the plan?
No, I'm good. I'm satisfied with those proposed changes.
Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in?
I have no objection.
Okay. Anthony?
I'm good.
Okay. Lisa?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So, board, or let me ask Ashley. Ashley, is this a situation where we have to waive the public hearing, or is it a matter of we can hold a public hearing?
All right, I don't believe you have to waive it. I have to pull up the code, but I believe it just doesn't mention that one's required.
Yeah, I came up, I looking at the code and I found lot line change under the definitions.
Yeah, that's where, so that's the,
And that was added, but I didn't see, where'd it go?
yeah, so that's really the only provision on it, that it's, you could do it based on submission of a plan that meets that, it's A65-3, I believe. Is that what you're looking at?
The terms defined. Yeah, it says relocation or revision of a lot line of a lot, which revision is intended to correct minor boundary problems and is not intended to create a new lot for development, and which revision will result in land area to become part of an existing adjacent lot or parcel, provided that such lot line change does not create a parcel at variance with the bulk requirements of the zone in which such parcel is located. It doesn't,
So I think it's actually A65,
oh, not the
5.
definitions?
A65-5, and then it's sub B. It says, a lot line change may be approved by the planning board upon submission of a survey prepared by a surveyor licensed by the state of New York, indicating that proposed change in the lot line, the topography of the property, notation where the land's going, etc. So once, if you believe additional information is required, you could also require that, but that's the provision. So it doesn't speak of a public hearing. It's just that you could approve it upon submission of all that information.
Okay. Board members, does anyone feel the need that the adjacent property owners, is there a reason to notify them and to have a public hearing on this particular application based on the changes that are proposed? Any thoughts?
None. Just to make sure I'm understanding this, the applicants own all 3 lots?
Yes.
Then yeah, that's fine. It's a minor change. No, I don't think a public hearing is necessary.
Yeah, and again, to clarify, so they're not proposing any new structures. They're essentially, as John had pointed out, rearranging the lot lines so that more land is added to existing smaller lots.
I agree with Jason.
Okay,
I agree.
anybody else?
This is Anthony. I
You're
agree.
good with that?
Yes.
Okay. And I agree. Lisa?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay. So with that, if we don't have to have a public hearing, then I think for our next meeting, we can do, Ashley, do you think it would be appropriate and it would be reasonable, and Sean, to do an approval of this lot line change, subject to getting up? We have to wait because we don't have the GML review in hand. But
So for your August meeting?
yeah, could we have a resolution, and if the GMLs come back, we can take action?
Yes.
Okay. And then
the 30 days would be up by then, so.
yeah. So I think in the meantime, John, you'll get Ashley's comments, and you'll get Sean's comments if we can clean up the map. So we minimize the number of conditions that are attached to the decision. That'd be great.
Okay,
All right.
yep.
So we'll schedule this for our one of our August meetings.
No, looking forward to it.
Normally our decisions or our actions are done at the second meeting, but frankly, it depends on what the application load is. So if we only have one or two, then we may just hold it if timing is okay with GML at the first meeting, but it'll be one of our August meetings.
Okay,
All right. Any
Submittal
questions from the
date-
applicant?
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
Okay, so submittal date for August meetings is July 30th by 2 p.m. And starting in August, we're going back to paper. So you'll have to submit 11 sets of plans. And then also the PDF to put up on the board. And it looks like meetings in August will be up in Town Hall.
okay.
All right?
We'll
Yep.
start cutting more trees to make more paper.
I know. Thank you. So the August meeting is the 13th or 18th.
Okay.
Okay.
Noreen, did they all need to be big plan sheets, or were you going to do 11 by 17s?
Well, Lisa and Jason are okay with 11 by 17. Do you want to do those, John? Is
You
that
can do whatever size you want.
all right?
I
let me
prefer
finish.
I prefer a regular size.
Right, and I know that Sean and Ashley do, but if I can get the other board members down to the smaller, it might be easier. So let me finish checking with the board and I'll let you know before submittal date.
Just drop me an email, how many you want, what size.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Good night, folks. Stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now,
You too.
Board members, don't feel pressured to take smaller maps.
By the way, if it helps, I'm happy to just get a PDF. So if it saves a few papers, I'm okay with that. So if you want to deduct the number of sets that the applicant has to submit, please feel free.
Okay, Anthony.
All right. So the next item on the agenda is Monroe Commons. SBL 2-1-10. The agenda says Dunderberg Road, but I think we need to change it to Nininger Road next time. Noreen?
Yeah, I copied this over from an older one by mistake. I do have it changed in the master.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I see we have Caleb, we have Joel, we have Jay. Is there anyone else joining us as far as your team?
Should be John, the planner from Tim.
John Dahlgren?
Yes.
I see John's name.
Should be coming up.
Okay. Okay, I think John's on.
What is John's last name? I'm sorry.
Dahlgren. Dahlgren, I believe. If I'm wrong, John, let us know.
Okay, I'm here.
There we go.
Okay.
So since we last met, I don't believe we've received any revisions to the maps or any additional data associated with the project. We did receive a draft scoping document from the applicant. Is there anything else that we received that I'm not aware of or that I haven't mentioned?
I believe that was the only thing that was submitted was the draft scoping document.
Okay. So where we are in the process is we had been reviewing the FEIF Part 2 for this particular project. We did have some questions that we asked of the applicant in terms of clarifications, whether certain tests have been done. We didn't hear back. And part of the request for that information was to consider that while we were reviewing the FEIF Part 2. So regardless, we have a number of areas where we've identified large to moderate impacts, and we have been going in the direction of doing a positive declaration and requesting that the applicant prepare a draft environmental impact statement, which is in fact why they submitted a draft scoping document. So Ashley, for any reason, do you think we need to go through the FEAF Part 2 again?
So I did prepare a proposed pause deck based on, those answers that you had. There was a few blank questions in the FEAF. I don't know if you want to address those, if the applicant has anything to add to those areas. Otherwise, you could just, I incorporated those into the proposed pause deck.
Okay. So do you have the pause deck, Sean, that you can bring up, or do you want me to share my screen?
I have it, I can share.
Okay. And after we go through this, we'll talk a little about the scope, and we'll touch base on the consultant list that we've developed that would review the DEIS on behalf of the town. So for the board members, especially for those of you that are new to this with seeker, the positive declaration is the form that essentially says that we believe this project may have a significant adverse impact on the environment, and that we require that a draft environmental impact statement be prepared. So this is the positive declaration. The first paragraph talks about that this notice is being issued pursuant to Part 617, which are the regulations implementing seeker, the State Environmental Quality Review Act. We've determined that there may be a significant, actually maybe we'll add adverse impact when we finalize this. May have a significant adverse impact on the environment, and that a draft environmental impact statement will be prepared, and that we're going to hereby adopt the pause deck in order to investigate and evaluate, again, the potential environmental impacts of the proposed action, and scoping will be conducted. Scoping means essentially that we have a formal process where we allow the public, we ourselves, and the consultants we retain to make comments on the proposed project and the scope of the analysis for the DEIS. And we'll incorporate those public comments and our comments and the consultant's comments into the final scope that we are responsible for issuing. So the name of the action, this is the Monroe Commons project. We are the lead agency, the Town of Monroe Planning Board. The date of action, date of mailing will be added once we issue this positive declaration. The seeker status is a type 1 action given its size. It's one that requires coordinated review, which we're doing. Location in Injure Road in the town of Monroe, and the tax map parcel is provided. Then we have the description of the action, and applicant representatives, if you see anything that is not, that needs revision or further detail, or that may have changed on the plan, let us know as far as the description of the action. Can you make that a little bit bigger, Sean? If you could zoom in a little, thank you. So the action is the construction of a 4-story, 400,646 square foot mixed-use commercial building, retail, office space, 39-room hotel, associated parking. The parcel is 18.2 acres. The section, block and lot number is provided again. It fronts to Ninninger Road within the town of Monroe. It's in the heavy industry zoning district, and the proposed action also includes the zoning amendment to increase the maximum height permitted in this district to 50 feet, in addition to site plan and special permit approval and there may possibly be an area variance for lot coverage. That determination has yet to be made. So the positive declaration goes on to provide the reasons supporting the determination. So if we could scroll.
So
And
those highlighted areas, those are ones where the question was not answered when you went over the EAF Part 2. So unless, one of these changes as you go through it, I'd propose that you're going to finalize the EAF Part 2 consistent, with these being found moderate to large, and then adopt the next deck. Or if any of them change, then we'll just modify it as we go along.
okay. So proposed action may involve construction on land where bedrock is exposed or generally within 5 feet of existing ground surface. That was one that was a question that I don't know that we received a response. And again, everyone just, look through the itemized list here of what's triggering this positive declaration. Construction phasing was another one that we were looking for some information, but I don't believe we didn't receive any additional information. 9, create turbidity in a water body. From my perspective, I think we leave all these in, and we leave this one in, for example, because there is a wetland, and I believe there's also a stream on the site.
Well, significant grading, so.
Yeah, a lot of grading, correct. May require the construction of new or expansion of existing wastewater treatment facilities. While we are aware that this is going to connect to the Orange County Sewer District, Harriman Wastewater Treatment Plant, we're also aware of that plant having capacity questions and issues, and we want that evaluated, not the facility itself, but the potential impact to that facility of adding additional development that places demand on it relative to where they are in their capacity. So I think it's reasonable to leave that in. May cause a reduction in population or loss of individuals of any species of special concern or conservation need. I propose we leave that in. We haven't received the Natural Heritage Program letter, I believe, or U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service letter. So again, we're erring on the side of the potential that those populations could exist on the property and need to be evaluated. And the same is true of item number 22. And then as far as the other items, again, we went through those and did check off what was considered large on the EAF. 27 may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to an archaeological site not included in the New York SHPO inventory. Again, the potential exists, so we're leaving that there. May result in blasting within 1,500 feet of a residence, hospital, school, licensed daycare center, nursing home. We are aware of a school that's to the northwest. And because we don't know about blasting and whether there'll be rock removal, given the amount of grading that's going on, we're leaving that in as a potential impact. And just to clarify, this isn't a comprehensive list. This is a list of various reasons that at a minimum are triggering this positive declaration. And so if you continue to scroll down, there's contact information, and the copy of the notice gets sent to various agencies that we've already identified as being involved or interested agencies. Planning board members, do you have any questions with regard to this positive declaration form? Any questions about the process that you want to ask Ashley? Again, because I know this is new to everyone.
Bonnie, did everybody receive a copy of this, or it hasn't been distributed yet?
This hasn't been distributed. It's a draft that you're seeing, with the intent of making any minor revisions that we might want. It is tied to the full environmental assessment form part 2 that we reviewed at the last meeting. And in essence, it's summarizing all the potential large impacts that may occur. And the intent is for this evening, if the board feels comfortable actually passing or voting on the positive declaration to start the environmental impact statement review process. And then we'll, after we do the pause deck, we'll talk a little about the draft scoping document and the scoping process itself.
So the items that are in here are just basically check boxes that we're going through from a form. Are there other items that we want to add? And if they come up, can they be added?
So the itemized list here, and if you look at the sentence right before number 1, it says an environmental impact statement will be prepared to address at a minimum the following elements. This is not the final list, Anthony. There may be other areas that we will ask be addressed and evaluated in the draft environmental impact statement. And that's going to be incorporated into the scoping document. So this is really just, there could have been, frankly, 2 or 3 items to trigger the positive declaration, but Ashley went through the process of identifying, each of those items that was in the FEIF that were large to moderate that are triggering the need to do an environmental impact statement. But again, it's not intended to be the final full list.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Anybody else have questions? Ashley, is there anything you want to clarify or
No, I mean, I just
explain?
emailed Sean the part 2, if you wanted to look at that at all. Again, most of those, so I incorporated the ones that we were not sure of as far as last time being moderate to large. I think there's a few that are still blank when I was just looking at it on page 7.
Okay. So let's go
Regarding
through
the
that.
archaeological resources. So you answered one of those, yes, that it may occur wholly or partially within a substantially contiguous to an archaeological site, not on the SHPO inventory. Then under E on the top of page 7, there's some subparts that you should go through. But other than that, everything Anthony has just taken straight from this form. That's the language that's in there. But when you develop the scope, that's really when you'll get into the more specifics as to what's being studied and elaborating on what, falls under each of these categories, that type of thing.
So with regard to this particular item, it has to do with archaeological sites. E says that if we answered yes to any of the above. So if we could just scroll up, Sean. So we did check moderate to large for the potential for this to have an archaeological site not included in the SHPO inventory. So since we answered yes there, if we scroll down to that question E, then we should be checking off boxes. If any of the above answered yes, continue with the following questions. Proposed action may result in the destruction or alteration of all or part of the site of the project. I would say that's yes. I would also say that that's large to moderate because it's actually a substantial amount of grading that's being done on the property. Proposed action may result in the alteration of the property's setting or integrity. Again, I think just because of the amount of grading that's going to be done and the extent of disturbances, that would be large to moderate. And proposed action may result in the introduction of visual elements which are out of character with the site or property or may alter its setting. It's a wooded setting, so I would say that it will change the character of the area. Having said that, it's next to an area that's been fully clear cut. So, to me, that's a little bit more of a toss up as far as what the setting is now. But I certainly think Roman numeral I and 1 and 2 should be large to moderate. And then 3, I think can go, small. I think there's an impact. I just don't know if it's large to moderate given some of the changes that have occurred. The backdrop to that property is still forested. So again, it is changing the setting. I think if we're being conservative, Ashley, we could check it off as large to moderate. because they are going to do a visual analysis anyway as part of the scope, ultimately. Any thoughts on that, board members? Were there any other items? Was that the only one that we needed to fill out? Was there anything else we hadn't checked?
So the other ones I went through, those are the ones that were highlighted that were blank, but I put them in the moderate to large category. So that's all
Okay.
already, unless.
Okay. And we'll circulate this around. And it will be the part 2 for this project that then becomes the basis for, again, issuing a positive declaration. So with that, let me ask the board members, are you comfortable voting on a positive declaration tonight, meaning we're going to ask the applicant to prepare an environmental impact statement?
Yes, I'm comfortable
I am.
with that.
Okay,
I'm comfortable as well.
okay. Lisa, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Anthony?
I'm good.
Okay. So then I am going to make a motion that the planning board determine that the Monroe Commons project may have a significant adverse impact on the environment, and that we are going to adopt a positive declaration requiring that the applicant prepare a draft environmental impact statement to evaluate the potential impacts with a scoping process to follow up this positive declaration.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? Noreen, could you please poll the board?
I had to get unmuted. Bonnie Franson,
Aye.
Jason Sorinsky,
Aye.
Pat Shea,
Aye.
Anthony Vaccaro,
Aye.
Lisa McQuaid,
Aye.
and John and Jeff are absent.
Okay. So with that, the vote and the motion passes. So we have now issued a positive declaration that will be circulated by Ashley's office. And we now need to take up the draft scoping document. So Ashley, why don't you give a little background on sort of the draft scoping document, what it means in terms of the process, the scoping session that follows, and the point in the process where we then and our consultants integrate their comments into a final scoping document.
Sure. So the scoping or the draft scoping document that was submitted, this is was submitted by the applicant. This is basically the outline for what will become the environmental impact statement. So this is going to outline all of the different potential impacts that you're requiring the applicant to study. It'll start with the DEIS and then ultimately go to the FEIS. But this is the first step in the process for scoping. The new secret regulations always require scoping now for any environmental impact statement. So it starts with the applicant's draft scope, and then it goes to you. You get this, you have to send it out to all of the involved and interested agencies. You have to make it available to the public as well, and you need to arrange for an opportunity for those agencies and the public to comment. So that's typically done through what's known as a public scoping session. It's pretty much like a public hearing. It's just called a public scoping session where people could come and or virtually come and attend and give their comments on things they think need to be included in this scope, which again is really like an outline of what will be studied. So now that we receive this, it's also time for your consultants, for you as board members to review it and start also compiling your own comments as to what you think needs to be included in this document as well. So again, it starts first, the applicant proposes the draft, what they think needs to be studied based on the the pause deck and what areas you had identified. So here, they were a little early on that because you hadn't finalized and adopted the pause deck, but they went through based on, you know, our discussions last week and proposed what they think needs to be studied. And now it's going to go to you, your consultants to comment, and the public to comment. And then ultimately it's your job as the board to adopt that final scope that will become the outline. So just a note on that, there is a time frame. Seeker has timeframes for various steps in the procedure. And for this one, it's a 60-day time frame to adopt the final scope. So I think it would be reasonable to ask the applicant to agree to an extension of that time period, just so that you and the consultants, everyone, the public has a fair opportunity to review it. We could schedule a public scoping session and then go from there.
Jay, you're representing the applicant. Would the applicant entertain that extension for the scoping process?
Well, we're certainly not going to ask this board to undertake a review that's in a inordinately short period of time. So the answer is yes. Ashley, I believe it's from the date, the 60 days runs from the date that this is submitted, that the scope was originally submitted.
Yes, I believe that's how it's done. Here, of course, we have the submission date, which is, a few weeks before the meeting. So.
Well, I think one thing we could do is we could certainly stipulate that the submission date is today, since you just issued the pause deck, and have the 60 days run from today. So that certainly extends it out an extra couple weeks. July 9th, August 9th, September 9th would be 60 days. We don't have a problem with extending it to a reasonable amount of time. We just don't, we just want to know from you what you think a reasonable amount of time, assuming you get timely responses from us, is going to be.
Understood. So I think personally that October would be more reasonable. And the reason for that is we'll get this out. There is a couple of corrections I think that need to be made before we could send it out. There's still the reference to Dunderberg Road instead of Nittinger. So I don't really want to circulate that with that error because it might confuse people. And also just to reference the zoning amendment just should also be added in the description of the action because that's a big part of it as well. So once we receive that, then it could get circulated. I would anticipate a public scoping session in September. So from, the time it's circulated through September, the planning board, because they are going to, I believe, try and retain some outside consultants tonight at this meeting. They could start to review it. We could review it more in depth. And then I anticipate by October, we'd be able to have a final product ready for the board to adopt.
Sure. So, do you agree that we can stipulate that the submission date is today? So are we in agreement on that? Because then we can just calculate what we're going to do from there.
Yeah, I think that's fair to stipulate that the submission date is today or whatever day it's, submitted with those two corrections I just mentioned.
Sure. And then
you could do that tomorrow maybe, or?
Are we able to? Can we identify the meeting dates that may be in October? Because we can just pick a date that we'll agree to extend it to.
Yeah. So I think I would say.
Noreen, what are our meeting dates in October?
October 8th and October 20th.
So listen, I don't have a problem with extending the date to October 20th with the goal that we're all going to work to get the scoping document accepted on October 20th.
Yeah,
I think that should be a reasonable amount of time. And we acknowledge that we'll work diligently to make sure that the board gets responses each time you ask for something so that we can get this done. And Joel, I'm talking for you guys. Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's fair given the time frame we're in with COVID, and also, not that people can go very far on vacations, but, July and August, people tend to be doing other things. So I appreciate that. As far as the scoping document, we do need to do a little work. So just, again, secret classification, we know it's a type 1. So if we could, instead of have to be determined, put type 1. Ashley did mention also the fact that we need to, in the description of the proposed action, talk about the zoning amendment. And we want it changed, Dunderberg to Nininger. Just please make sure also, Ashley, when you look at the involved and interested agencies, that it matches what was in the notice of intent that got circulated and the pause deck.
I think I had sent, and Caleb, is it you that prepared this? Should I send to you, or I could send you just that in Word, the list, just so it matches. You could just copy and paste it right on there, because some of the things were a little, I think a couple might have been missing, and the order was a little different too.
I'm sorry, you're referring to the draft scoping document or the?
Yeah, so right from the lead agency notice, we had the list of the involved and interested. You could just take it right from there.
Okay.
Just to make, because some of them I think were missing.
If you could send it to both me and John Dahlgren, that would be great. John was the one that prepared the draft scoping document.
Sure. I may need an email, but we could find it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Okay, so Ashley will coordinate with John and with Caleb. We will circulate this. We will send this off to the consultants so they can start working on it. One of the areas that I think, for instance, needs a little thought are the alternatives that are going to be examined. And so essentially there was the no action, but then there weren't any other alternatives. So we'll have to develop that, and that'll come through the process. So, again, at this point in time, as Ashley has said, this is the applicant's stab at listing those areas that need to be evaluated, what the potential mitigation measures should be. But ultimately, the final scoping document is adopted by the planning board, and that will be with the input of the public and its consultants and the comments of the board itself. So this is just to start a process of scoping. So
I think if you, just to maybe clarify, do you want them to submit just a revised version just with those minor corrections, adding that it's a type 1?
Yes.
Doing the list of involved and interested just straight from the lead agency notice, also changing Dunderberg Road to Nininger, and then adding a reference to the zoning amendment in the description. And then once we receive that, we'll circulate it. Is that?
Yeah, so Ashley, you circulated last time, you would circulate again?
So we could, yeah, exactly. We'll circulate that.
Okay.
Can I ask, when you say circulate to, are you talking to
all the involved and interested?
All right, so you're comfortable with this, with the draft as it sits now. You're comfortable with the content to the extent that you feel it's appropriate to circulate that for their comment.
Well, that's not. I mean, if it was a EIS, that would be the standard that we'd be looking to. But as far as for purposes of the draft scope, SECO really wants the lead agency to do that right away to start the public and involved agencies. So we really don't have substantive comments at this point. That it's really, what we have to do is get it out there, quickly, so that everyone else can look at it, and we'll have our comments as that process goes forward. That way, we still are working with that end date of October 20th. Because we really need some more information for sure, but we can't wait to have all of that in there, because then we'll, not get it out to everyone else with enough time to have the public scoping and all of that. So I think these are just some key, I would call almost, really key elements of the project, just the correct road name and the zoning amendment that just really need to be in there. That way the people that are receiving it know exactly, they have a better idea of what the project is.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. So with that, is there any action we have to take, Ashley? Do we have to pass a motion to circulate the draft scoping document?
So you could, I would suggest if you want to actually schedule the public scoping session at this point, that way we could notify when we send the circulation that when that's going to be, and the public will know when that's going to be.
So would it make sense to do that? I don't envision doing that in, obviously we can't do it next week. I don't think we should do it in August again, just because of schedules. So will we do that the first meeting in September or the second meeting?
You could do it, I know you usually do things like that at your second meeting, but if you want, to be safe, to put it in at the first meeting, and if for some reason you needed to carry it over then to another one, just
Okay.
in case.
So we could actually adjourn the public scoping session and carry it over to another meeting?
If you needed to, then.
Okay.
And that way you have at least the 2 meetings in September.
Okay. Are we running up against any holidays or any?
That's what I want to check. What are the
September meeting dates are September 10th and September 15th.
Okay, both are fine. It's still before the holidays, and the October meetings are right after the holidays, so we're good.
Okay. So then the idea would be to have the public scoping session. The other benefit to having it in September is hopefully by that point in time, we really will be able to have people at a meeting. If we have to have it via Zoom, then so be it. But, just extending it out a little bit more allows us to have that in-person type of session. So I'm going to make a motion then that the planning board schedule a public scoping session for the Monroe Commons project on September, was it 10th?
Yes.
On September 10th. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, who was that?
That was
me,
Jason.
Thank you.
And can you poll the board, please?
Yes, Bonnie Franson,
Aye.
Jason Sorinsky,
Aye.
Anthony Vaccaro,
Hi.
Pat Shea,
Aye.
Lisa McQuaid,
Aye.
and Jeff and John are absent.
So when we go to circulate, Ashley, would it make sense that it have some kind of transmittal that says that there'll be a public scoping session and the date?
Yes, that's what I think it makes sense to set the scoping session tonight. That way we could do that together with the circulation. We could give
Okay.
that.
Terrific.
And also we'll give notice that comments could be accepted. We'll give probably Noreen's email address.
Okay. And then we'll post the draft scoping document. We should create a page for Monroe Commons, or at least have that and the draft scoping document up there. Notice that there'll be the public scoping session and the date. And when you do the circulation, like the EAF, you'll include a map and a location, just for reference purposes again, with the scoping document, the site plan and a location map, correct?
We can include a copy of the site plan, which I believe has that, should have the location map on it.
Okay.
And just if you wanted to do a motion to circulate the draft scope upon receipt of that, the minor typos or corrections that need to be made.
Okay. Everybody understand the process? My board members? Great. Good. Ashley, so that takes care of, we went over some of the changes to the FEAF. The part 2, we passed our positive declaration. We're going to circulate the scoping document. I guess, do we have to vote, or should we vote on the consultant list?
Yes, I think you should vote to retain the consultants. That way they could start reviewing the project and the scope. Okay.
So Noreen had sent around a list of consultants, a consultant team. Sean, do you have that can be popped up?
Did we need to make a motion for the
Hold on.
circulation first?
You could do a motion to circulate the draft scope upon receipt of that correction, the corrected version.
Okay, so I make a motion that we circulate the draft scoping document, subject to making the minor revisions that were discussed this evening. May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Noreen?
Bonnie Franson,
Aye.
Jason Sarinsky,
Aye.
Anthony Vaccaro,
Aye.
Pat Shea,
Aye.
Lisa McQuaid,
Aye.
and Jeff and John are absent.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
we scheduled the scoping session, and now we're circulating the draft scoping document. This is a list of the various consultants that either already represent the town or are various consultants that I've reached out to that can do particular aspects of the review. Obviously, Burke, Mealy, Golden, and Naughton, that's our legal consultant. Ashley's the contact there. And of course, our engineers, McGoey, Hauser, and Edsel, with Sean being the contact for his firm. Karen Arndt is someone that Sean has worked with, I've worked with. She's a landscape architect out of Newburgh. She does a lot of reviews. She does them in Montgomery, I believe in Newburgh as well. And so she's included on the list. The firm that we would like to see oversee the seeker process and the document. And this really means coordinating with the other consultants, coordinating the process. You know, when we have a draft environmental impact statement, there has to be a determination that it is complete to allow that document to get circulated for public review. This consultant would also, once there are comments on the DEIS, would put together and ensure that all the public comments and consultants' comments and planning board's comments are addressed in a final environmental impact statement, help out to ensure that the finding statement is comprehensive, you know, along with Ashley and with Sean. So again, it's overall coordination. Their specialties in terms of also covering other items that would be part of the DEIS. They would evaluate land use and zoning, which of course there's overlap with legal to a certain extent. Air and noise, visual community character, historic and archaeological. You know, historic and archaeological is more just ensuring that the process is met, that it goes up the SHPO. You know, typically you don't have necessarily a second person out there, you know, checking, you know, holes or doing additional shovel tests. It's really making sure that that's addressed through the process. And then energy. WSP, Jeff Fredericks, and I'm hoping that someone had contacted you, Jay or Joel. WSP and Jeff Fredericks has been the consultant to the town that reviews the well testing and hydrogeology. And I believe you had all wanted to use Tom Cusack, but because of various mergers, Tom Cusack is now part of WSP. So, you know, we don't feel comfortable with Tom being used for hydrogeology since WSP is already the town's hydrogeology consultant. So that's, again, WSP is already retained by the town. Dave Tompkins, I know from a couple of communities, including the town of Shawangum. He is a specialist and an ecologist and specialist in wetlands, and he's with Clough Harbor. And he has a team, including Julia Craner, that would support him. We talked about Mazer Consulting. Mazer Consulting is actually, they have a Newburgh office, but their traffic people, I believe, are out of Valhalla. John Collins, the engineers have done a lot of traffic analysis in this area. I think they've also done some work with the county on Inninger Road. They're familiar with it. And I believe they did check to make sure they didn't have a conflict and that they could represent the town. So that's who we're proposing to do traffic. And then in terms of potential for solid hazardous waste, not that we necessarily expect anything, but if we're going to ask for a phase 1 environmental site assessment just to make sure that there isn't anything present, Frank Getchell is someone that we could use from Weston and Sampson, who's expert in this area. And then if we scroll to the next page, is that everybody? Yeah, that's everybody. So that's the team at this point. It may be that as we go through the public scoping process, there may be some area of impact that comes up that for whatever reason isn't covered by one of these specialists, one of these consultants. And if that's the case, we may need to add to this list, but I think it's a pretty comprehensive list. And frankly, some of these firms can, they actually have multiple specialties. So I think we're well covered here. Any comments?
Is there anyone else besides Mazer that we can use for traffic?
I think that AKRF does traffic. I think Clough Harbor does traffic. There are people that are part of the team that can also do traffic. What is the concern, Jason?
I was not happy with their traffic analysis for Bald Hill. I've also believe that they might be a little, for lack of a better phrase, too comfortable with the area. And I think it might be time for a new, fresh set of eyes to come in and take a look at the area to determine, the area's traffic and vehicle demand.
Anybody else have thoughts on that? Yeah, I don't.
Does Jason, do you have somebody else that you wanted to recommend?
I sent around multiple lists with various consultants.
I mean, there's also Sam Schwartz out of the city. I'm trying to recall who was on your list, Jason.
I had ACOM, VHB, Equity Environmental in Mount Olive, New Jersey. They do a lot of suburban and municipal work. Who else do I have?
I would, I know VHB, they did some work in Montgomery. And frankly, Mazer Consulting reviewed their work. And I thought they did a great job of the review. ACOM, I don't know anybody at that firm that does traffic. I just don't know them. I've been in the business for 30 years, but I'm not sure who at ACOM does the traffic reviews. I know at VHB, they bought a consulting firm, which is why they have the traffic ability now. And I can't think of his name offhand. We can also check with AKRF because frankly, AKRF has them in-house. And since we already have them.
I have a good working relationship with AKRF. I like them as well.
All right. So,
with regards to WSP is, not WSP. You said John Collins, Mazer?
That's Mazer, yes. That's Phil Greeley and John Collins.
Okay, so we're talking about the groundwater and hydrologist? Or,
no, the traffic.
Okay, would John Collins be the lead on that, or he's just a contact for business?
He's, I was trying to find my emails because I reached out to him and I reached out to Phil Greeley. So it'd either be Phil or I thought it was John who had responded to me. And I usually communicate with Mazer through Andrew Featherston. What's, I'm not understanding the question, Anthony, or what you're looking for.
I know that John Collins has been around for a very long time. I've just was wondering if he was actually the point or just a contact for business, because, I think it'd be worth knowing who exactly would be taking the lead for that firm.
So do we want to do that? Then is, approve all of the consultants with the exception of traffic and then do a little bit more discussion about the traffic consultant?
I would be okay with that.
I would just ask that we could maybe try to find that traffic person maybe at your next meeting. I know there's not a lot of time, but it's
Yeah.
important that we, get them starting to review this.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll, let's, if everybody's okay, let's adopt this list and let's have a discussion about the traffic consultant sooner than later so that we can pick one that the majority of the board would be okay with and get some calls for them, from them. So you have a little more
With the
information.
exception of traffic, we're adopting the list?
Yes.
Okay.
If I may have a question, since the entrance to this site is to a county road, they will also probably have a traffic consultant. I'm not sure who they're using now. It might be good to coordinate with them and not have like two traffic consultants commenting on the same project. So,
Well, interestingly, I think the county, if we don't retain Mazer, then they may retain Mazer. Because they've done work there in that area. But again, we'll, that's a good point, Joel. We'll touch base, maybe with county DPW, see if there's anyone that they would normally use. But again, let's get that information, and I think we need to talk about traffic consultant further. Any other comments from the board members? So if there's no other comments, would someone please make a motion to accept the consultant list, except for the traffic consultant, which we will discuss further and select at our next meeting?
I'll make a motion that we accept Bonnie's consultant list with the exception of the traffic consultant.
May I have a second?
Second.
That was Pat. Noreen?
Thank you. Bonnie Franson,
Aye.
Jason Zirinsky,
Aye.
Pat Shea,
Aye.
Pat Shea, Anthony Vaccaro,
Aye.
Lisa McQuaid,
Aye.
John and Jeff are absent.
All right, so with that, the motion carries. So we have our primary list of consultants, and we will investigate further the traffic consultant. And is there any other business, Ashley, Sean, with regard to Monroe Commons that we have to address this evening?
Oh, not for me.
No, yeah,
Right.
nothing I'm aware of.
Applicant representatives, do you have any questions or comments that you want to make?
I was just going to ask Ashley or Sean if you could send me a copy of that Part 2 FEAF, just so we have a list of, the different issues that we can help sort out.
Sure, I'll send you the list, that and the pause deck as well.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We're moving this process forward.
That was productive.
Good. And we will, again, continue to process it and find our traffic consultant and start working on the scoping document. Actually, I have a question, Ashley. So we're going to have all these comments from the planning board, from consultants, potentially the public. Is the public scoping session, do we present at that point some revisions based on the consultants' input, or essentially is it the draft scoping document that the applicant has presented that's the subject of the public scoping session, and then we add comments?
Yeah, that's really the latter, because you're not going to be, recirculating every time you make revisions. So the way I envision is I would ask that they send a copy of the scoping document in Word, and, we could work on our comments and stuff in the interim, but it's really going to be, the public's going to be commenting on that draft that was the applicant's.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. All right, so I think we've done all the tasks we can. to move this forward in the seeker scoping process. And thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening.
Have a great night and stay safe.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, and then I think that was all that was on our agenda except for minutes. Do we have, because Jeff is not here and John is not present, do we have sufficient people to actually vote on that? On those two
I left
minute
my
items?
copies in the office, so I don't remember who was or who wasn't here. They must be
All
on
right.
because they're not in my work bag.
All right, so the first one was 121.
Yes.
All right, so we had present was Anthony, Lisa, myself. Actually, we don't have enough because Jason and
Okay.
Jeff were absent.
Okay.
And we had a vacancy at the time.
Right. Okay, so we'll hold that one over.
And then
February
was
13th.
February 13th. Oh, wait a minute. That's the agenda. Minutes. Nope. January 21st. 13. At that meeting, Anthony, Lisa, Jason, and Jeff were present. I and John Allegra were absent.
Okay, so
We'll have to
hold
hold
the
these
numbers
over. Okay? And
no
we still,
problem.
I think we still had a vacancy at that point.
Yes.
So actually, we should note that for the minutes.
Yep. I'll add that in.
Okay.
No problem.
So is there anything that the board members want to raise? Any other business or Ashley, Sean, that we need to take up this evening?
Nothing from me.
Okay.
I need Pat's comment on what he wants regarding files moving forward. Do you want printed plans, the large sheets, 11 by 17, or strictly PDF? That's for you.
I have no preference.
You gotta
whatever.
pick a. So you'll be okay with 11 by 17?
What does everybody else have?
I'm
I have
taking
a
large
couple-
scale.
Some are taking large, some want the smaller.
Someone,
You have to be able
Anthony
to
just wants
store
the
these.
PDF. Yeah, I think it's a matter of, if you're looking at a map or if you're looking at information, some people can look at the screen and be able to review things, whereas some people need literally a paper copy in front of them.
Right.
And being in my 50s, I need now larger maps to be able to read anything. So I prefer the larger scale. Plus, I actually like to scale things off with a scale. So I like to get the large format. I just feel like I miss things if I'm looking at it on a screen. So it's really a matter of personal preference, Pat, whatever you prefer.
But my glasses are getting thicker, so I'll go with the large one as well.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
I just have to send out notices to the applicants how we're gonna be going for August forward, so.
And by the way,
With John and Jace and Jeff.
For this application, if you want a different size, the following meeting, that's fine. This isn't hard and
Right.
fast. It's just to give some, direction for Noreen when she asks for materials.
Got it.
All right, guys. So with that, if there's nothing else, I would make a motion to adjourn the meeting. If someone would make that motion.
So moved.
May I have a second? Jason, if that was you, you're muted. And you're still muted.
Difficulties.
I can second that.
All right, there we go. I seconded.
All
That
right.
was more annoying than it should have been.
All right. And so I'm just going to say all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We are adjourning our meeting. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
everyone.
Good night.